After working overtime all month to help my father pay off his mortgage, I got a call from the bank. He'd remortgaged it and bought a boat, in his name only. "You owed me," he said when I showed up in tears. "I raised you, didn't I?" I said nothing. But the boat wasn't there the next morning. And neither was I. What I did instead. I, 27M, live in a small town in Northern California. Nothing fancy. I rent a small apartment above a shop, and I've been working 2 jobs for months. Night shift at a gas station and morning stock work at a grocery store. It's not ideal, but it pays the bills. Or it did, until I started giving most of my paychecks to my dad. My dad is 64. He's not sick. He's not dying. He's just bad with money. Always has been. But he raised me alone after my mom left when I was 7, so there's always been this guilt hanging over me, like I owe him for sticking around. Like I'm supposed to make up for the life he didn't get to live. 3 months ago, he called me in a panic. Said he was behind on the mortgage. Said the bank was threatening foreclosure. I know that house. I grew up in that house. It's old and smells like the garage, but it's the only place that ever felt sort of like home. I told him I'd help. He didn't ask twice. I started putting in extra hours. I sold my PS5, my old bike, even a guitar I swore I'd never part with. I gave him every extra dollar I could scrape together. Rent was late. I ate canned soup and bread for weeks. But I didn't care. I thought I was saving something. I thought I was helping him stay in the one place we still shared. At the end of the month, I walked into the bank and paid off the remaining $2,982. I didn't tell him. I figured I'd wait until it was done to surprise him. The clerk even smiled and said, "Must be nice to do that for your dad." I left that bank feeling, I don't know, like maybe, finally, I'd done something that would matter. That he'd be proud of me. That feeling didn't last long. 3 days later, I got a call at work. I was on my break, sitting behind the store eating a sandwich when my phone rang. It was from the bank. "Hi, is this Jacob Doyle?" "Yes." "This is Stacy from Redwood Credit Union. I'm just calling to confirm your father's recent refinancing on the property at 127 Maplewood Lane. He listed you as a contact." My mouth went dry. "What refinancing?" "He came in yesterday to remortgage the house. Took out a new loan. $42,000. I didn't know what to say. She was still talking, but I couldn't hear her anymore. I stood up, threw my sandwich in the trash, and walked straight to my car. I drove over to his place. My heart was pounding. I didn't know what I was going to say. I just needed to see his face. Needed to understand why. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw it. A brand new boat. Not a little fishing boat. Not a used one either. It was shiny. It was massive. It was parked like it belonged there. He was outside, hosing it down like it was a car he'd had for years. He looked up, smiled. "Pretty sweet, huh?" I got out of the car and just stared at him. "I talked to the bank," I said. He didn't flinch. Just kept spraying the boat with the hose. "Yeah, I figured you'd find out." "You remortgaged the house?" "Sure did. I wanted to get something nice for once. I've earned it. I gave you everything I had. I thought we were saving the house." He turned off the hose. "You think that little bit you gave me made a difference?" "I paid it off. I finished it." He shrugged. "You owed me." "What?" "I raised you, didn't I?" He said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Like all those nights I stayed up working were just part of the deal. I couldn't speak. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just looked at him. Something in me shut off. I got in my car and left. That night, I didn't sleep. I just sat in my apartment, staring at the wall, listening to the cheap fridge hum. Around 4 a.m., I made a decision. I didn't even think. I just moved. The next morning, the boat was gone. And so was I. I didn't steal the boat. Let me be clear about that. But I did take it. I knew where he kept the spare keys, inside an old tin under the workbench in the garage. Same place since I was 12. He never thought I remembered, but I did. I waited until just before sunrise. His house is out past the main road, a little hidden by trees. I parked 2 blocks away and walked. It was quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you feel like you're sneaking around in a dream. I hitched the boat to my cousin's old truck, one he'd loaned me once when I helped him move, and rolled it down the driveway slow. No lights. No engine. Just enough slope for gravity to take care of the rest. I drove it to the next county, parked it behind a mechanic shop I used to work at. I still had the key to the back gate. Then I left it there. I didn't sell it. I didn't damage it. I just took it out of his hands.
He didn't call me.
Not once. He knew it was me, but he didn't say a word. And I didn't either. It sat like that for a few days. Me waiting. Him probably stewing. Then I started getting messages from people. Family. His friends. Why would you do that to your own father? He's done so much for you. He's heartbroken, you know. That one made me laugh out loud. A week later, the cops showed up at my apartment. It wasn't an arrest. It was a wellness check. My dad told them he was worried about my mental state and that he feared I might hurt myself. That was his move. He didn't want the boat back. He wanted control. They asked me a bunch of questions. I told them I was fine, that it was just a misunderstanding with my dad. They left, but it left a mark. It made me realize something. He wasn't just selfish. He was willing to use anything. Pity, police, guilt, to make me crawl back. The next morning, I got a letter from his lawyer.
He was suing me for theft.
Of the boat. That same day, I found out he took out a second personal loan. He was making it look like I'd ruined him. Like I'd stolen the last thing he had. But I'd seen the paperwork from the bank. I knew the truth. He had plenty of money left from the refinance. He was just using this whole thing as a way to pull me back into his mess. So, I decided to do something I never thought I would. I called my mom. I hadn't spoken to her in almost 20 years. I didn't even know if the number would work. But when she picked up and I said my name, she went silent. Then she said, "He did something, didn't he?" And that's when I knew this wasn't over. She didn't sound surprised.
That was the part that stuck with me.
We talked for 3 hours. Turns out, the story I'd been told my whole life, that she walked out on us, left me behind without a word, was only half the truth. According to her, she tried to take me with her. Fought for custody. Got denied. He told the court she was unstable, dangerous, manipulative. He got full custody. She said he knew how to perform when it mattered. I didn't want to believe it at first. But then I remembered all the times he made me believe I was the problem. The way he turned every argument into a debt I owed. The way he used silence as a weapon. The money guilt. The emotional blackmail. It all fit too well. She lived 2 states away now. Remarried. Quiet life. Said she'd been following me online for years, but didn't want to intrude. Said she thought I hated her. I didn't know what I felt. Not yet. But it wasn't hate. I told her everything about the boat. The mortgage. The lawsuit.
She didn't hesitate.
Fight it.
He's bluffing, she said.
And if he's not, we'll make it public. People like him hate exposure more than anything. And then she said something that stayed with me. He never let me win. But maybe you can. So I went to a lawyer. Not a big one. Just a local guy who handled real estate disputes and small claims. I showed him every transfer, every bank record, every message. I told him about the lawsuit, the threats, the cops. He looked at me and said, "This isn't about the boat. This is about power." We filed a countersuit. The moment word got out, everything shifted. People who once messaged me in anger started going quiet. A few even apologized. One of his old coworkers messaged me out of nowhere and said, he pulled something similar on his brother. "You're not the first." Then came the real twist. The bank called me again. Not the same rep, someone higher up. They'd been reviewing recent transactions flagged for possible fraud. Turns out, my dad had lied on his refinance documents. Claimed the house had no liens, no outside contributions to the mortgage. My payments? Completely unlisted. The bank rep said, "If what you're saying is true, he may have committed loan fraud." I didn't even know what to say. She told me they were launching an internal review. Asked if I could provide any documentation of the payments. I had it all. Screenshots, statements, emails. And then I thought about something else, something I'd forgotten. When I paid off the mortgage, the clerk at the bank had taken a photo with me. Said it was a new thing they were doing for people who finished off their family home. She emailed it to me later. In the photo, I'm holding a paper that says paid in full. My name, the address, the date, everything.
So I sent it to them.
A week later, his loan was frozen. Investigation pending. He called me that night. First time since the whole thing started. No hello.
No small talk.
Just, you think this makes you better than me?
I didn't say anything.
He said, you'll regret this. Then he hung up. I haven't heard from him since. But that's not where this ends. Not even close. Because a few days later, someone slid a letter under my apartment door. No name. No return address. Just a single sheet of paper. And on it, in handwriting I hadn't seen since high school, were 4 words. He did it before. I stared at the letter for a long time. No envelope. No explanation. Just those 4 words in tight, slanted handwriting. He did it before. I read it over and over, trying to make sense of it. My first thought was my mom. Maybe she'd sent it. But the handwriting didn't match. I dug through old boxes, looking for any scrap of paper from the past. Old birthday cards, school permission slips he'd signed. The slant of the letters, it was his. That hit me like a punch in the chest.
It was his handwriting.
So, what the hell was he trying to say? I thought maybe he was unraveling. Maybe he was trying to scare me. Or maybe some twisted part of me hoped he was confessing. I started asking questions. I called my mom again and told her about the letter. She went quiet for a long time. Then she said, check into his brother, the one who died. I barely remembered him. Uncle Ray.
Died when I was around 9.
The story I always got was that he'd fallen off a roof during a home repair. Tragic, accidental, sudden. But I remembered the funeral. More than anything, I remembered how my dad acted afterward. He wasn't sad. He was angry, snapping at people, saying things like, he never appreciated what I did for him. Even at the time, I thought it was weird.
So I dug.
I started calling people I hadn't spoken to in years. My cousin, Ray's daughter, still lived in Oregon. I found her on Facebook.
Sent a message.
She replied in less than 10 minutes. I was wondering if you'd ever reach out. I didn't know what that meant, but I asked if we could talk. She said yes. We set up a Zoom call the next evening. When she popped on screen, I barely recognized her. Older now, tired eyes, but her voice was familiar. I told her everything. The mortgage, the boat, the lawsuit, the letter. She listened without interrupting. Then she said something I wasn't ready for. My dad gave your father a lot of money just before he died. He said it was a loan, but I think it was hush money. Hush money for what? She looked down. There were rumors about your dad and the company they used to run. Misappropriation of funds. Fake invoices. Ray was going to go to the authorities. Then he fell off the roof. My blood went cold. No one could prove anything, she said. But my dad was careful. He didn't drink. He didn't even own a ladder. And he never did roof work himself. Not ever. Did the police look into it? Barely. There was no autopsy. Your dad handled everything. He even signed the release for the body. I sat there, numb. My mouth dry. My chest tight. And the money?
Gone.
He said he used it for expenses. That's all we were told. I ended that call and just sat in the dark for a while. My stomach was churning. If this was true, if he'd done something back then, too, then the boat, the lawsuit, the manipulation, it wasn't new. It was just what he'd always done. And maybe I wasn't the first person he'd wrecked for control. I didn't sleep that night. Next morning, I went to check on the boat again. I'd left it parked behind the mechanic shop, out of sight, locked up. But when I got there, it was gone. No note. No damage. No sign of a break-in. Just empty gravel where the trailer used to be. And I swear to God, right there in the dust, someone had written a word with their finger.
Mine.
I stood there staring at that one word, mine, until my legs started to feel weak. There was no mistaking it. Someone had taken the boat. Someone who knew where it was. Someone who wanted me to know it was personal. I looked around, but the alley was empty.
No cameras.
No tire tracks. Just that word, drawn in the thin film of dirt where the trailer had sat. I didn't call the cops. I knew how it would sound. I took the boat, parked it behind an old shop, and now someone had stolen it from me. It wasn't even in my name. All that would do was make his case stronger in court.
So I left.
I drove back to my place, locked the door, pulled the blinds. I didn't go to work. I didn't eat. I sat on the floor and listened for sounds that weren't there. And that night, it got worse. Around 2 a.m., someone knocked on my door. Not loud, just 2 soft taps. Like they were being polite. I froze. They didn't knock again. I stayed completely still. Eventually, I crept to the door and looked through the peephole. Nobody. I waited 10 more minutes, then opened the door a crack. Nothing on the mat. No note. No packages. But across the hall, taped to my neighbor's door, was a photo. My photo. That old picture from the bank, me holding the paid in full sign, smiling like an idiot. I pulled it down and stared at the back. In thick black marker, someone had written, "You think this makes you innocent?"
My mouth went dry.
I didn't sleep. I sat with my back against the door all night, holding a kitchen knife and trying not to panic. The next morning, I called my lawyer and told him everything. He was quiet for a moment, then said, "We're filing for a restraining order today." But that wasn't enough. I needed to understand how far this could go. I needed to know what else he'd done, who else he'd hurt. So I called my mom again. She picked up on the first ring. "Did he ever come after you?" I asked. She was silent. Then she said, "Not directly. But things started happening." "What kind of things?" "I lost my job 3 months after I left him. My car got keyed. My apartment was broken into, but nothing was taken. I knew it was him, but I could never prove it. He wanted me scared, not harmed. That's his thing. He doesn't want to kill you. He wants you to destroy yourself trying to get away." That hit harder than I wanted to admit. Then she said something else. Something I hadn't even considered. "Jacob, he's not working alone." "What do you mean?" "There were always people around him. Friends who owed him favors. People he had dirt on. When I left, I found out later that he'd told our landlord I was a drug addict. That I'd abandoned you. He makes people doubt your side of the story before you even get the chance to tell it." I thought back to the wellness check. The letter. The photo on my neighbor's door. Someone was helping him. Or watching me. Maybe both. I didn't say anything. I just hung up and sat there, cold all over. Because the truth was becoming clear. This wasn't just about the boat. It never was. This was a game he'd been playing for decades. And I was finally learning the rules. I didn't leave my apartment for 2 days after that. Not because I was scared, though I was, but because I couldn't figure out what to do next. Every move felt like a setup. Every option felt like another trap. On the 3rd day, I got a call from my cousin. The one who loaned me the truck. He sounded pissed. "Why the hell is your dad calling me?" I sat up.
What?
"He said you stole his boat, wrecked it, then left it abandoned on the highway. He asked me to testify." "Testify? In court? Against you?" "Said he had evidence. Said I helped you transport stolen property." I didn't even know what to say. My mouth just hung open. My cousin kept talking. "I told him to go to hell. But I'm telling you now, man, he's not screwing around. He wants you gone. He's dragging anybody he can down with you." My hands started shaking. I didn't wreck the boat. I figured. But now my job's asking questions. He's calling places, Jake. He's trying to poison the well. That hit hard. Because this guy, my cousin, was one of the only people who still talked to me after everything. And now he was a target too. I apologized. Said I'd fix it. Said I'd make sure none of this touched him. He paused. Then said something that stuck with me. You sure you're not already too deep? After we hung up, I started thinking about how easy it had all happened. How quickly he turned people. How he knew who to call, what to say, how to spin it so I looked like the problem. It wasn't just a fight anymore. It was war. That night, I went to check on my car. I hadn't driven in days. Just wanted to make sure it was still there.
It was.
But the windshield had been smashed. And on the seat, in black spray paint, someone had written, "Running won't save you." I stared at that windshield for a long time. The glass was shattered inward, like someone used a bat or a pipe. I didn't even open the door. I just stood there in the parking lot, lit by the weak yellow light above my building, wondering how many neighbors had walked past and seen it. Wondering who watched it happen. Wondering if it had been him, or one of his people. Either way, the message was clear. I went back upstairs and locked everything. Windows.
Door. Even put a chair under the knob.
Then I turned my phone off and sat in the corner with a notepad. I wrote one word at the top. Options. I listed everything I could think of. Disappear. Leave the state. Change my number. Go quiet. Go public. Social media. Press. Anything. File more police reports. Get paper trails. Push the lawsuit.
Hard. Day deeper.
Find someone who'll talk. Then, below it I wrote, why is he doing this? Because that was the part one couldn't get around. The boat was replaceable. The money wasn't small, but he still had plenty of it. This wasn't about property. This was personal. He didn't want the boat back. He wanted me destroyed. And if I ran, he'd win. I called my lawyer the next morning and told him everything. The broken windshield. The message. My cousin. The neighbor's door. He told me I had to decide fast. We can push for an emergency hearing, he said. Or you can disappear. But doing both will make you look unstable. I thought about it all day. That afternoon, I drove, glass shards still in the seat, to the house I grew up in. The old one. His house. I sat across the street, engine off, watching it. The blinds were closed. No lights on. But his truck was in the driveway. The same one from when I was in high school. Dented on the passenger side, rust on the wheel wells. I could smell the oil and dirt from across the road, like memory had a scent. I thought about knocking. I thought about walking up to the door and saying, why? But I didn't. Instead, I took a photo. The house. The truck. The quiet. Then I left. When I got home that night, my front door was cracked open. Just slightly. Not broken. Not forced. Just left ajar, like someone had forgotten to close it all the way. My stomach turned cold. I pushed it open with one finger. Everything inside looked normal. Lights off. Curtains drawn. But on the kitchen table under a single ceiling light was something new. One of my old report cards. From 9th grade. An F in math. A C- in science. Red pen all over it. And next to it a note in his handwriting. I told you you'd always fail. I don't even remember how I got to the couch. One minute I was standing in the doorway, staring at that report card. The next, I was sitting with my head in my hands, feeling like I was 16 again. Back in that kitchen, him standing over me with a beer in one hand and disappointment in his eyes. That paper wasn't just a taunt. It was a message. He wasn't threatening to hurt me. He was dragging me back to who I used to be.
Who he made me.
I picked up the report card. My name was there, written in the same old cursive I hadn't seen in years. He'd kept it. All this time.
Why?
I flipped it over. There was writing on the back. You'll never be more than what I made you. I felt something inside me snap, not in an angry, dramatic way. More like a wire finally gave out after too much weight. I wasn't scared anymore. I was tired. I grabbed my phone and called my mom. Told her everything. The report card. The spray paint. The photos. The windshield. The note. Her voice shook. You need to get out of there. No, I said quietly. I need to go all the way in.
She didn't argue.
I started with public records. I dug up every document I could find tied to him. Court filings, property deeds, business licenses. I found two past LLCs I didn't recognize. One was dissolved after only 6 months. The other was flagged for irregular filings and unpaid taxes. He'd listed a business partner, a name I didn't recognize, Arthur Mayfield. I looked him up.
Dead.
5 years ago. Natural causes, the obituary said. No family listed. No funeral service. But I found a photo, and my stomach dropped. He was the man who used to come by the house when I was a kid. I only ever knew him as Uncle Art, though I was told he wasn't really family. He brought over tools, sometimes took my dad out on fishing trips. Never talked to me much. I'd forgotten his face until that moment. And then I remembered something else. The basement. There was a safe down there. I'd seen my dad open it once, when I was maybe 10. He shoved a stack of envelopes inside and told me never to touch it. I thought it was just old paperwork or bills.
But now?
I started to wonder. I drove back to the house. Middle of the night. Parked down the block again.
No lights.
Quiet street. I walked around the back, stayed low, checked every window. Nothing open. But the garage wasn't locked. It never had been. I stepped inside. Smelled like oil and damp wood. I found the key to the basement on the same hook it had always been. The safe was still there, tucked behind an old water heater. Same black dial. Same rust on the handle. I didn't know the code, but I knew someone who might. I called my mom, whispering, "Do you know the safe combination?" Silence. Then, try his badge number. What badge number? When we first met, he worked security. He always used it as a password. I remember it was 4 digits. 1974. I punched it in.
Click.
The door creaked open. Inside were envelopes, stacked high. Bank statements. Old checks.
A few thumb drives.
But at the bottom, photos. And not just any photos. My Uncle Ray. Standing outside a building. Then again, sitting in a car. Then one of him and a woman I didn't recognize. Her face circled in red marker. Another with a note. March 9th. 3:24 p.m. Leave no loose ends. I felt my stomach turn. What the hell was this? I flipped through them. Some of the people I didn't recognize. But one of them made my blood run cold. It was me. A photo of me from earlier this year. Getting into my car. A red X drawn through it. And underneath it one more line. If he fights, finish it. I didn't take the photos with me. I know that sounds strange. But I couldn't. Not yet. I just stood there staring at them, feeling like the basement was closing in on me, like the walls were listening. I took pictures on my phone, backed them up twice, then put everything back exactly the way it was. Closed the safe. Relocked it. Left through the garage and walked back to my car with my heart hammering in my ears. I drove around for 2 hours with no real destination, just trying to think. What did finish it mean? How far was he willing to go?
He'd followed me.
Watched me. Took pictures. Maybe he'd paid someone. Maybe he'd done it himself. But it wasn't random. It wasn't panic. It was planned. This was a man who had rehearsed his control. This was a man who kept receipts. And now I had one of them. When I got back to my apartment, I didn't go inside right away. I sat in my car and just watched my own windows. For shadows. For signs. For the faintest hint that someone had been in there again. Then I saw it. The light in my bedroom, on. I hadn't left it on. I started to get out, but then I saw movement. A figure. Just a shift in the curtains. Someone was in there. I backed up, slow, heart pounding. I drove straight to a hotel across town and checked in under a fake name. It was a trashy place, flickering lights, stained carpet, but it had a lock and a deadbolt, and that was enough. I didn't sleep. I lay on the bed with the curtains open just enough to see the sky changing color. And sometime after 4 a.m., I made my decision. I wasn't going to run. I wasn't going to let him turn me into some shadow version of himself, paranoid, cornered, weak. I was going to expose him. Everything. The fraud. The lawsuit. The stalking. The safe. The photos. The money. The threats. All of it. But I knew I couldn't do it alone. So I called the one person left I hadn't asked for help. My cousin's wife. She used to work in journalism. Local stuff, mostly crime, housing, human interest, but she had contacts. Knew how to dig. Knew how to ask the right questions. I told her I had something big. Bigger than family drama. Bigger than a lawsuit. She hesitated. Then said, "You've got one chance to make this real." One. I nodded. Even though she couldn't see me. She added, "But just so you know, if we do this, if we go public, he won't stop.
Ever.
And for the first time since it all started, I said what I hadn't said to anyone. I'm not sure he ever really started. We met at a diner outside town. One of those old places with chipped booths and a coffee pot that never emptied. She brought her laptop, 2 notepads, and the kind of expression that told me she didn't fully believe me yet. That changed when I showed her the photos. The one of Uncle Ray. The woman with the red circle. The note about loose ends. And the one of me with the X. She didn't say much. Just stared, her pen tapping against her thigh. "You have more?" she asked.
Yeah.
"There's a safe in the basement. Dozens of envelopes.
Drives.
Financial stuff. I didn't take it, I just photographed what I could. We'll need it all. Documents, dates, witness statements. A timeline. You can't just accuse someone of this without proof to back it up." "I know." We spent 3 hours in that booth. She walked me through everything I remembered: dates, texts, the wellness check, the lawsuit, even the windshield. She didn't say whether she thought it would go to print. She just listened, like she was trying to decide if the story was dangerous enough to matter. When I told her I thought he had help, she didn't even blink. "Of course he does," she said. "Guys like that always do. They keep people around to carry the weight when things go bad." That line stuck with me, because she was right. And I was starting to wonder just how many people had been helping him and for how long. That night, I went back to my cousin's place. He'd been quiet since the lawsuit threat. I thought maybe he was laying low, trying not to get pulled in. But when I walked into his garage, I saw something that made my stomach drop. The boat. Parked under a tarp. Hidden behind old paint cans and lawn equipment. I just stood there, frozen. He came out a second later, saw me staring, and froze too. "Jake," he said, voice calm. "Let me explain." "No," I said. "You don't get to explain. You lied. It's not what you think. You moved it. You hid it. Did he pay you?" He didn't answer. "Did he pay you?" Finally, he looked away. "He said if I helped him get it back, he'd make the lawsuit disappear. Said he'd clear my name too." I almost laughed. It came out as a sound that wasn't human. "He's not clearing anything. He's setting you up. You think you're helping him, but you're just the next step." "I didn't know what else to do," he said. "He said you were spiraling. That you'd snapped." I didn't know what to believe. That was the part that hit the hardest. Because it wasn't just betrayal. It was doubt. Even the people who were supposed to know me weren't sure anymore. And that's when I understood. My father wasn't just trying to ruin my life. He was trying to erase me. One piece at a time. I left the garage without another word. Didn't yell. Didn't threaten. I just got in my car and drove. My cousin didn't try to stop me. He knew it was over between us. I called the journalist, my cousin's wife, as soon as I hit the road. Told her where the boat was. Told her to take photos, call a witness, document everything. I didn't care about the lawsuit anymore. I wanted him exposed. Not just for what he did to me, but for what he did to everyone who stayed silent. She said she'd head over in the morning. That night, I stayed at another motel. Farther out. One of those places where no one asks questions, and the doors open right to the parking lot. I set up everything. I wrote it all down. A full timeline. Every receipt, every message, every copy of the threats, photos, names, dates. I made a digital folder and sent copies to 3 people, the journalist, my lawyer, and myself under a separate encrypted email. I titled the folder, "If anything happens to me." I didn't feel dramatic doing it. I felt tired. It was almost done. I was finally going to pull him into the light. The next day, I was supposed to meet with a contact she'd arranged, someone in a local newsroom willing to hear the story. But before I could leave the motel, my phone buzzed. It was from an unknown number. Just one photo.
My mom.
She was standing outside her home. Her face blurred, but the outline unmistakable. The message underneath said, "Go to the press, and she disappears next." I dropped the phone. Everything stopped. Not just fear. Something deeper. A cold, buried thing I didn't know I still had. He found her. Somehow he found her. Or someone working with him did. And he was using her the same way he used me. Not just to control, but to shut me down completely. I stared at the photo for a long time. Then I called her. No answer. I called again. Nothing. Then a third time. Straight to voicemail. I grabbed my keys, heart racing, and started toward the car. Halfway there, I stopped. Because I knew the truth. If I ran to her, I'd be watched.
Pulled in. Used.
If I didn't, I'd never forgive myself. This was it. This was the line. I could stay quiet and maybe keep her safe, or I could press send, go public, and risk everything. I stood in the motel parking lot, one hand on my car door, the other still holding the phone. I wasn't moving.
Couldn't.
It was like my body had figured out something my brain hadn't caught up to yet, that no matter what I chose, he'd already won something. My silence or my fear. My mom's safety or the truth. I kept telling myself there had to be a way out, some third option I hadn't thought of. But deep down, I knew there wasn't. There never was. And that's when it hit me, he never needed me to lose. He just needed me stuck right here, afraid to take another step.